Alright, let's see here. When is this thing going to switch over? I can never tell with this interface. There we go. I think we're live. Let's see. Alright, excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. It's really good to see you all once again. I'm here on the campus of the University of California at Berkeley. And we are going to have a fun, kind of laid-back stream today. So I hope you're ready for it. For anybody who might be new here, my name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. I'm here on Twitch just trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. So here we are. Anywho, the big edifice that you see behind me, this one right back here, is what we call the VLSB, the Valley Life Sciences Building. That is the building in which stands the University of California Museum of Paleontology, or UCMP. That's actually where I got my start as a paleontologist. I volunteered there when I was in high school, and really kind of jump-started everything for me. So we're going to take a look hopefully at the public displays in there at the end of this stream. Going to be as unobtrusive as possible. Don't want to disturb anybody, but given that is a public space, we can go in there, we can stream, and I can show you some of those cool displays. But before we do that, I want to give you kind of an earthquake tour of campus, because the world-renowned Hayward Fault actually runs right through the Berkeley campus. And I'm going to go show it to you. It's going to be pretty neat. So I hope you're excited for that. And who have we got here right now? Let's do some greetings right here at the beginning. Let's see. And app is not working properly. There we go. Bulent, good to see you. You are first today, huh? Thank you for the 4 months of support. Really appreciate that. Claire, how are you doing? Good to see you, Claire. Thank you for all your help, as usual. And, hey, Lordy, how are you doing? Great to see you. I hope you are having a great morning getting ready for your stream. We'll see if maybe we can raid you later, and then I can show up in person. Looking forward to that. Mayor of Space, fresh dinosaurs indeed. Good to see you, Mayor of Space. Hopefully today in this stream you will get to see a dinosaur that I helped reassemble. I'll show you later. And let's see here. Patrick Pirate. No, Lava One says, yeah, Patrick Pirate. Awesome. Get used to it. Gonna start doing Wednesday streams more often. Umbia Halo, hello to you. I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Kate Bots, what's shaking? Hope you're having a good day. Yogurt Garrel, how's it going? Good to see you, Yogurt Garrel. And Linda needs sleep. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Who else do we have? And Patrick Pirate, 8 months. Thank you for that ongoing support. You know that means a lot to me. That is awesome. Really appreciate it. And your lawnmowers indeed, Kate Bots. Yes. Fall Machine, how are you doing? Good to see you. Carpermania, welcome. And let's see. And I walked here from the car, Kate Bots, but before I had a car, I used to take public transit here every single day. Yeah. Now it's a bit quicker to take the car, and it's possible to find parking now that classes aren't really in session right now, given that it's the summer. Otherwise, I probably would have had to take public transit. Mudman1965, hello to you. How are you doing? Good to see you. Solid Gray Fox, it's going well. How are you? Velky Studios. Yeah, fault lines indeed. I will show you an actual fault line. I don't know if we'll be able to get into the stadium, but Memorial Stadium here on the Berkeley campus has an active fault line running directly through it. So one half of the stadium is going north and the other half is going south at the rate of about 1.2 millimeters per year. And you can actually see the offset. So I'll see if I can show you that. I don't know if it's going to be open. But, yeah. Elaine Dunn, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Welcome back. And let's see. Great place for a stadium. Well, they knew that when they built it. I'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, it's on the other side of campus. So it's going to be a bit of a walk. But anyway, I'm so glad everybody's here right now. Let me show you where we're walking. Over here. But I have been under the weather for the last couple days. You could probably still hear some frogginess in my voice right now. I think I got the same cold that Lordy had at the end of our road trip. And so I've been mostly resting and just doing video editing and stuff like that for the past few days. Ooh, we've got some blackberries right here. Check those out. Wow, very nice. Not bad. But yeah, anyway, feeling a lot better this morning. I know it's not COVID, got tested and everything, so no need to worry about that. Just a common cold, I suppose. Pretty uncommon for me, though. Doesn't happen very often. Like it's like maybe once a year or something like that, so hopefully this means I'm good for another year. Anyway, we're walking past the VLSB. And we're gonna go walk up the hill and visit a couple of different points of interest. And yeah, it's gonna be a good time. They're just blackberries, and it's just one. Even if it had something dreadful on it, it's just one. Alright, so we're walking up the hill right now. There's the Free Speech Movement Cafe. I used to get a coffee there all the time with Pat Holroyd, who is kind of my mentor here at the museum. I don't know what you would call her. She wasn't really collections manager. Effectively, she was collections manager, but she's officially a museum scientist. I don't know, we used to call her the vertebrate fossil goddess. Everything with a backbone was under her purview. And still is, pretty much. But yeah. And there's another library right there, too. And then here's the main library on campus. I think this is the Bancroft Library, right up ahead. I've heard people far more well-traveled than myself say that the campus here at UC Berkeley is one of the most beautiful in the world. And I'm inclined to believe them. Some very impressive architecture and really cool landscaping. I don't know, but really, the thing that makes it so beautiful is something that you might not be able to see super well today because it's so hazy, but it's just the geographic setting. I mean, right here in the East San Francisco Bay Area, on a clear day you can walk up the hill and see Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge and San Francisco off in the distance. It's gorgeous. You just can't beat that. But yeah, there is Bancroft Library right there. And see that big old tower in the distance? That is Sather Tower. Also known as the Campanile. It's a big bell tower. And I'll tell you in a minute why it's so special. What happens to be inside of it. It's a pretty cool story. And, Mackenzie, I did go to Berkeley, I guess, when I was in high school. I volunteered at UCMP for 4 summers. And then, I guess basically every waking business hour that I wasn't in school, I was at the museum. In fact, like senior year of high school, I used to cut school a lot and hop on the train and come to Berkeley and go work in the museum. A lot of other high schoolers were cut school for different reasons. You know, it's not typical, I guess, to go work at a paleontology museum while you're cutting school, but that's what I did. Good to see you again, by the way, Mackenzie. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, I'm doing great. I'm just getting over a little cold right now. My voice is still a little froggy, but I'm feeling pretty much 100% again. And you know what did we miss? I'm going to take you over to the old geology building and show you something cool there before we talk about the Campanile. But you're gonna have a cool view while we do that. With that in the background. And yeah. Anyway, it's good to be back. Man, when I was in high school, this was, I guess it was really my first taste of like real grown-up freedom. To be able to hop on the train and come to Berkeley and, work alongside paleontologists at the museum. It was magical being able to do that. It was a real formative experience for me. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have that opportunity. I'm sure I've told Pat that before. Pat, Dr. Patricia A. Holroyd, museum scientist at UCMP. She was kind of my mentor during that time. I'm sure I've told her that before, but I should go see her sometime soon and tell her again. I think it might also be really cool to do a fundraiser stream for UCMP at some point, because I'm sure they've not been doing super hot in terms of budget recently, with COVID and everything. So, yeah, that might be a cool way to use this platform for something really, really positive. All right, coming up right here is the old geology building on campus. So it is, has it since moved? No. This is still geology, I think, right? This is McCone Hall, if I remember correctly. Oh, we got a squirrel over here. Hey, squirrely friend. How are you doing? You were looking awfully skinny for a Berkeley squirrel. I'm surprised. Actually, these guys are pretty rotund. I guess with fewer students here during COVID, yeah, they're not as well fed as they used to be. Anyway, McCone Hall right here, which I think still is the geology building. UCMP, the University of California Museum of Paleontology, used to be in this building until late 80s or early 90s. It moved to a new facility, much larger, in the Life Sciences building. And I think that also kind of saw a transition where the paleontology program at Berkeley moved from the geology department to the Department of Integrative Biology. So I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but I've talked many, many times about how paleontology is basically this weird kind of amalgam of geology and biology. And on different university campuses throughout the world, it'll be either in the geology department or the biology department. At Montana State, where I did, my undergrad, it was in the geology department. Paleo was part of earth sciences. And but here at Berkeley, it is part of integrative biology. So yeah. Oh, and we've got a raid coming from Code Spells. Code Spells, thank you for the raid. Welcome to Paleontologizing. For any of you who might be new here, my name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist here on Twitch, trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach, answering people's questions, talking about fossils in the news, talking about new discoveries and publications, interviewing other scientists, doing my own research on stream. But I've still got mobile data for the next few days after this great big road trip that I did, visiting different museums and stuff across the American West. And so I'm using that up right now here in Berkeley, California, just down the road from where I live in Oakland. The road trip was a smashing success. It was really great. Go back and catch those VODs. I think you'll really like them if you like museums. So yeah, we're just having kind of a chill stream today. And I think I'll just take a seat right here. This looks like a nice, safe, relaxing spot. Anyway. And let's see. Cuban saying this is great road trip. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But yeah. Anyway. And hi, 333 Strybrank Strysacek. Welcome to Paleontologizing. At the end of this, I don't know, after next Monday, I think I'll be doing streams from my office, going over, research and stuff, talking about new publications, and working on some publications of my own, doing a bunch of other cool, fun stuff. But for now, I think every stream until then is going to be a mobile one like this, while I still have these data. I want to take advantage of that for as long as I can. So yeah, an interesting solid gray fox and his credenza, dinosaur bones. Interesting. Huh. Let me make sure this is still good. Yeah, we're good. It's funny, the chat keeps disconnecting because the modem that I have it attached to is probably the least reliable of the 3 modems that I have. But yeah, Patrick Pirate, exactly. Gonna be writing that paper, illustrating it, getting it published, and then I have a bunch more. And I've realized that to kind of make a point, I'm gonna be working on even some of my preliminary stuff live on Twitch, just because, well, I want to make a point that we don't need to be nearly as secretive about data and everything as everybody seems to think we need to be. I think so many of my colleagues have this kind of cloak and dagger attitude toward data and ideas and that kind of thing, and it hurts everybody. It pits researchers against one another. I'd like to help demonstrate, at least in some small way, that we don't need to be so suspicious, and I don't know. I want to be a little bit more open about this sort of thing, about my research, about my data, and yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be an ongoing experiment. But yeah. And you're going to go see Denverson? Cool, Mackenzie. Well, tell him Danny said hi, and tell Liz Danny said hi. I hear they saw something on Twitter about them waiting for some helicopters to come pick up their Tyrannosaur elements that they've got there in the ground. Pretty cool. Yeah. And Patrick Pirate says agree 100%. All right. And GeoJim? All right. Yeah. GeoJim, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be talking geology in just a few minutes. GeoJim, have you ever seen a fault, like an active, like the Hayward Fault, for example, in the ground? Because I'm going to show you. Especially if we can get into the stadium, then I can actually show you where this fault is. It's going to be pretty cool. But right now we're looking at this kind of wonky Smilodon statue here. The California State fossil, Smilodon, the saber-toothed tiger. Reconstruction and sculpture by Victor Bergeron, Trader Vic. If you've ever heard of Trader Vic's Tiki Bar, that's the same Trader Vic. Pretty colorful character in California history, Bay Area history too. But yeah, Smilodon, our state fossil here. This is a bronze sculpture. The skull is about the right size and shape, maybe a little bit too tall here, but pretty cool. I've always liked this a lot. Anytime I'm taking people on a tour through campus, we've got visitors coming through, I always make sure that we stop here, because it's pretty neat. The hind limbs are way too short. The Smilodon definitely skipped leg day, and neck is probably a little too long here too. Arms are too long, but you know what? It's still pretty cool. I like this a lot. And I mean, the teeth pretty much look right. So, I mean, mammal people are all about the teeth, so make them happy at least. Oh, very, very cool. Yeah, a Frownodon mayor's face. That would be funny. Yeah. Yeah. Smilodon. I'll sit here for just a minute, but I'll give you a little preview of what we're going to be doing. So, for anybody who just waltzed in recently, we are going to be walking up to Sather Tower, the big bell tower on campus. I'll tell you why that is so cool. We might go see the little mine if I can find it. There's actually a mine that's dug into the side of a hill. A mine like an earthen mine, not like an anti-ship mine or something. Because there used to be a mining school that was a big deal here on campus. And they actually had like a practice mine where students could go in and practice mining. And you can still see it. It's gated off, so you can't go inside, but you can still see this big hole in the ground, which is pretty neat. And then after that, we might go see that big rock. That's from way down south. And then we're going to go walk up to Memorial Stadium and see if we can spot the Hayward Fault there. And then we'll boogie it back on down over here, and we'll see if we can get into the VLSB, and I can show you some of the public displays there, including some stuff that I've worked on and helped repair before. But yeah, I'll show you my old stomping grounds from when I was in high school. Yeah, should be a good time. So, yeah. And 333 says, could he close the mouth? Yeah, Strbank. So, these teeth right here, these big canine teeth, as the jaw would close, the teeth would actually stick out of the bottom. So, imagine that this, jaw is closed like that. The teeth would be sticking out of the bottom. You can look up pictures on Google Images. If I were home, back in my office, I'd show you what these guys would look like with their jaws closed. But usually in popular media, in sculptures and paintings and stuff, you see them with their jaws open. This is just much more dramatic that way. But yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. There's some kinds of saber-toothed cat where they actually have like what is that genus called? I forget, but some of them basically have like projections that come off of their chin that kind of act as a sheath to protect the big canines like that. And then of course there's Thylacus milis, a marsupial saber-toothed cat, where they're completely unrelated to cats at all. They're actually a kind of, I don't know if they're true marsupials, but they're related to marsupials. They lived in South America, and they evolved convergently to look just like saber-toothed cats. And they've got these big scimitar fangs on them. The fangs are a lot narrower than on your true saber-toothed cats. So they may have actually been used for a different purpose entirely. But they look superficially very similar. And those guys have big projections coming off their chin as kind of like a half scabbard to help protect those big saber fangs. So yeah. Well, let's go over to Sather Tower right now, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Kind of surprised at how many people are here on campus. But I guess campus is actually reopening this fall. UC Berkeley was basically shut down for like a year and a half because of COVID. And it is now reopening, I guess, at the end of the month. So they're gearing up for that, apparently. And here we go. There is Sather Tower, the Campanile. I think it went up in like 1912. This is really kind of the emblem of UC Berkeley. And they've got a great big carillon bell inside, which I think is pretty rare to actually have like a genuine carillon. And people come from all over the world to sign up and play it. How do you spell carillon? Somebody look it up, please. But from what I understand, it's basically like a giant pipe organ, but instead of pipes, they are bells. And yeah, it's pretty rare. There are not very many in the world, from what I understand. But there's one right here at the top of that tower. But that is not nearly the coolest thing about it. Does anybody have a guess as to why it is so cool and special? I mean, given the context, you should be able to guess. But, yeah. And let's see. And Darkney says, haven't marsupials have died out in... Let's see. In South America since like a few million years? No, we still have marsupials in South America. There's still the opossum. And I want to say there's a couple more, but that might be it. South America used to be like, marsupial mecca. They were everywhere there, but no longer. Yeah. I guess Australia is the only real stronghold of the marsupials left. But it used to be big parts of Gondwana, well, the southern continents that were squished together. You know, South America, Australia, Antarctica, maybe India and Madagascar too. Actually, I don't think so. And I don't think Africa's ever really had marsupials either. But yeah, anywho. And let's see. Kangaroo Island, yes. And Javasaurus, yeah, maybe. Madagascar also used to be part of Gondwana. Anyway, can anybody tell me why the Campanile here, Sather Tower, why it is so special? I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I don't think anybody got it. But yeah. It's pretty tall. Come on, somebody's got to know. Yeah, Javasaurus, that's exactly it. So, there are 4 stories, 4 floors within this tower that are just crammed full of Pleistocene fossils. So, the University of California Museum of Paleontology happens to have a pretty large collection of Rancho La Brean fossils. Fossils from Rancho La Brea, from the tar pits there. Were any of you able to catch the stream that Lordy and I did from the La Brea tar pits? I hope so. But a bunch of fossils from there were housed here at Berkeley back when this was the only college campus in the University of California system. So Berkeley is like, the first university within the UC system. That's why people call it Cal for short. It's the first, the original. It used to be the only one. So back in the day, if you wanted to have fossils, housed in a public museum in California associated with the university, you sent them here. And so a lot of them still are here. So there's literally thousands upon thousands of Rancho La Brean fossils. Saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths, and dire wolves, and camels, and bison, and coyotes, and, did I say saber-toothed cats? And mastodons, and mammoths, and all of those. There really were too many of them to be able to fit within the various iterations of the museum itself. And so I think it was around 1915 or so. I forget the exact date. That doesn't sound right. It was pretty early on. They started housing them here in the Campanile. And I've been in there many times to help Pat, find different things, to kind of check on stuff. It is far from a state-of-the-art situation in terms of collection space. There's a bunch of sagging wooden shelves inside, just crammed full of all these Pleistocene fossils. There's cobwebs everywhere. It's pretty musty inside. But it is really, really cool to be able to go in there and just see all this stuff. I think they've been working on raising money in order to help stabilize stuff in there, get some new shelving, that kind of thing. But there's a video that you can find on YouTube. But I think Pat was actually a big part of that video, talking about the fossils in the Campanile, and trying to dispel some myths on campus. So I worked here for 4 summers, and Thanksgiving breaks, and winter breaks, and Easter breaks, and everything else. Every other time that I had off of school during high school, I would come here, and there would always be tour guides bringing groups of prospective students through the museum, through the building that museum is housed in, and then around Sather Tower and that kind of thing. And you'd overhear them talking. And the tour guides always would get almost everything wrong. Where they go, yeah, this is Sather Tower, blah, blah, blah. And they had all kinds of stories about how it got here. I heard a tour guide once say that this was brought back as a war trophy after the First World War, after the Allies captured a town in Italy, which does not make any sense. Completely untrue. Completely untrue. They said that it's entirely full of dinosaurs, which is, again, untrue. They're Pleistocene mammals, not dinosaurs. There's a story that, oh yeah, when they were excavating the foundation, they found all these bones, and then they put the bones inside afterward. Completely untrue. So I don't know, just bear that in mind. Anytime you might be visiting a college campus and, you know, hearing facts and tidbits from a tour guide, take those with a grain of salt. Yeah. Javasaurus, exactly, right? And I think that probably is it, Claire, right? Yeah. And solid grade foxes, they don't do their research. I don't know. Yeah. And so apparently Mark Goodwin, who was a dinosaur paleontologist at the museum until he retired recently, he used to go over to whatever building or organization on campus was responsible for the tours, and he'd kind of admonish them for a while and say, like, look, your tour guides are saying things that are not correct. Here's some real information. Here's some brochures. And then the tours would get better for like a couple weeks after that, and then they would just devolve. It'd be just as bad as ever again. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was funny. Let's see. I thought the guides had to pass some kind of exam. I guess not, Scriber. I guess not. Also, welcome to Paleontologizing. I don't know if I recognize your name, Scriber. I see you've got a sub badge next to it. You've probably been here for a while, and I've been so negligent about looking at chat until now that I haven't noticed yet. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Anyway, let us continue on. I just want to point out some of these cool landscaping here. It's got a really nice cedar right here. It's probably an incense cedar or something. Berkeley is really well known for its redwood trees, and we will see a couple of those in just a minute. But yeah, coast redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, I believe is the Latin name of these remarkable trees. They only grow along a really, really narrow corridor in California and I think Southern Oregon. I don't think they make it all the way up into Washington, but I could be wrong. And we have some of these lovely coast redwoods right here. Oh, and a squirrel friend. Hey, squirrel friend. How are you doing? Hi. They're a lot more skittish than I remember. I think there have been fewer people on campus, fewer people feeding them, so they're not as fearless as they used to be. But check these out, these remarkable redwood trees. This is Strawberry Creek that runs through campus right here. I heard somebody say once, this is probably the best studied creek in the entire world because there are so many different projects that have taken place on this creek because it runs through the heart of one of the world's greatest research universities. And there are those redwoods. Just beautiful. Just hanging out in the middle of campus. No big deal. Yeah. Very, very cool. I don't know. They make me very happy. I grew up with redwood trees like this, and a big part of my childhood. And when I was a kid, they always reminded me of two things, I guess. They reminded me of different movies and documentaries that featured dinosaurs. You know, things like Walking with Dinosaurs, with the like Jurassic Diplodocid episode featured a lot of redwood trees like this. They actually filmed part of that in Northern California, up near Muir Woods, which is probably about less than 20 or 30 miles from where we are right now. So same kind of environment. And also, of course, Return of the Jedi, which was also filmed in the same place. But yeah, redwood trees. They've got a certain mystique to them. They're very charismatic. Look at these beautiful oaks right here too. Oh man, it is so lovely to see old mature oak trees like these, because there's so few of them left. These used to be like the cornerstone of the ecosystem here, back before, you know, settlers cut them all down for the most part. We still have a few left here on campus. These are not super mature ones. These are probably planted, or yeah, they were probably planted around the time that most of campus was built, back when like some of these older buildings were built. But yeah, oak trees like this, like there's just entire biomes that grow out of them. The branches and trunks provide habitat for all kinds of different animals. You know, everything from little invertebrates to squirrels and other mammals. Their leaves and their acorns provide food for literally hundreds and hundreds of species. It's just like an entire ecosystem all in one like that. Very special and very cool. And it's really neat that we still have some of them here on campus. Like right here. And very cool Darknay as well. Sequoia giganteum. Sequoia giganteum. Is that the giant sequoia? I don't think we have any giant sequoia here in this part of the Bay Area, but I could be wrong. But yeah, but giant sequoia and coast redwood are part of the same genus, as I'm sure you picked out. Genus Sequoia. There's a big old oak right there. Alright, let's go find this big rock that I remember, and we'll talk a bit about that. There's a, like, virtual tour that you can take of campus here that was put together by somebody in the geology department, who I think is a seismologist, or maybe a structural geologist. But anyway, yeah, they put together this lovely PDF that you can take with you all through campus and find these different geological points of interest. And one of them is a big old weird rock on the, I guess, northeast side of campus. It is completely different from the rest of the surrounding lithology, but it perfectly matches some rocks from close to 100 miles away. And so, given that it lies almost directly on the Hayward Fault, the thought is this thing was transported that entire distance, and now we're lucky enough to be able to see it on the surface while we're around. And so we can kind of be witness to this is wonderful geologic dynamism here. Not from a glacier, Claire, but just carried along the plate as it shifted north. Isn't that cool, Blunt? Yeah. Here, I'll show you. If you're lucky, maybe I'll even be able to find the PDF and share it with you. But before we get there, I wonder if... we might be able to see the mine shaft first, because that's right over here, too. So we're walking this way. And I want to say the mine shaft is right over there. We'll go take a look. Certainly going to get my steps in today. This is good. And yeah, Darknay, there's a mine shaft on campus from back when there was a great big, like, you know, mining and natural resources department. And it is still there. It's gated off, so we can't go inside, obviously. But I seem to recall it's right down there, so let's go take a look. I only have a hazy recollection of where exactly it is. But I think it is down that alley over there. There's a bunch of workers over there, so hopefully we don't bother them and they don't bother us. Oh, and here's a lovely tree right here. Does anybody know what this is? These have been around since long before the dinosaurs. I think these date back to the Permian period. This is the only species left in that genus, the only species left in that entire order of plants. Yeah, ginkgo. Exactly. Good job, everybody. Yeah, ginkgo biloba is the only species left. But these are much more widespread during the age of dinosaurs, much more diverse than one species. There were a lot back then. And I don't know, it makes me happy that this one weird plant, the one species, the one that's left of its kind, has become so popular in cultivation that it's tough to imagine it going extinct anytime soon because it's just been cultivated all over the world. You see it in cities all over the place. So, I think that's pretty neat. And I wonder if the fact that they're so widespread now will in the future lead to speciation or something. Who knows? That would be super cool. Alright, so looking over here. Are we in the right spot? I think we are. It could be on the other side of this building, which I think it might be, actually. I remember this being tough to find in the first place, so it might be tough to find once again. I want to say it's over here. In fact, this is one of those buildings. I want to say this is the one that has the it's like on a floating foundation. So in the event of an earthquake, the whole foundation kind of moves, or like the building moves on the foundation. It's really cool. There's something really interesting and kinetic about it, but I don't remember exactly what it was. And yeah, I think that might be the mine over there. Those worker guys are staring at me, so I'm going to turn around. It might be around the other side of this building, though. We'll see. Interesting salad gray fox. A new carnivorous plant? Pretty interesting. Is it new in the sense that it's newly discovered, or did they just realize it's a new species because of like somebody did a molecular study or something and said, oh, this thing that looks slightly different, it's actually a new species? Maybe the article didn't even say. A lot of times they don't. Alright, I want to say it was back there, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's not here. Well, shoot. Sorry, everybody. We're not going to be able to see the mine shaft today. Honestly, it's not much to look at. It's just a gate over a big hole in the side of a hill. But I'm sure you could find pictures online. Yeah, we could go over there, but I don't know. The way all those worker guys are staring at me, it's like I don't want to bother. I don't want to be the jerk who walks over with a camera, and then people who might be a little bit wary of their own immigration status or something get really nervous. I don't want to ruin their day like that. So let's go find that big weird rock. Exactly, mayor's face, right? Yeah. So we're going to walk up the hill over here. So the whole Berkeley campus is kind of built on the side of a hill. Those are the Berkeley Hills up there. You might see those big eucalyptus trees on the top of the hill. There's also the Lawrence Hall of Science. And Lawrence Berkeley Labs are up there too. They've got a big cyclotron up on the side of the hill. They used to have a working nuclear reactor up there too, which I think they were finally allowed to decommission at one point. I think it was at some point during the 70s or 80s, the Berkeley, like the city of Berkeley City Council passed like an anti-nuclear ordinance that said that like nuclear materials could not be brought in or out of the city. And they have a working nuclear reactor like on campus. And so I think they weren't allowed to decommission it. So like it posed a real serious safety hazard because it was illegal to like maintain it. But I think they finally found a workaround and everything's okay now. Yeah. Oppenheimer Way right here, speaking of nuclear power. Yeah, okay, so there's the Greek theater right up there. And I want to say our big rock is right up here. We got to take a left, and then we'll go and find it. And I'll see if I can find that PDF for you as well. Same happening with the University of Michigan too? Oh, beer bong. Well, I hope everything is hunky-dory now. I hope they've managed to resolve that. How many people do we have watching now, by the way? Just out of curiosity. And GC, it says, is the Hayward Fault line close by? I'd say it's less than 100 meters away right now. It happens to run through the back of the Greek theater. But after we see this big weird rock, I'll take you over to the Hayward Fault and we'll look at it together. It's very visible in Memorial Stadium. I don't know if we'll be able to get into the stadium like I've been able to do before, but we should be able to see the crack in the pavement outside that corresponds directly to the Hayward Fault. So yeah. On here right now. Oh, interesting, beer bong. Okay. It's decommissioned, yeah. So if I remember correctly, our big weird rock should be over here up on the left somewhere. Maybe slightly down the hill. Why is everybody saying 129? Oh, okay, gotcha. 129 viewers. That's awesome. Thank you. Sorry. You gotta remember, like, sometimes I've got a dog's brain, easily distracted. But this, I believe, is where our rock is. Yeah, here we go. That's not it there. I promise it's more dramatic than that. So these big eucalyptus trees, it's amazing to think that these were all just brought over from Australia. They've become such a classic piece of, you know, Northern California flora, but totally non-native. This is our big weird rock right here. So just completely unlike anything else around. He's dumped some trash on it. That's disappointing. Yeah, Check this out. Oh, and apparently it's called Founders Rock. I've never seen that plaque before. April 16th, 1860. Oh no, I remember that plaque. Founders Rock. So it is really, really bizarre. Just like heavily metamorphosed. I don't even know what to make of this. It's just super weird. There's parts of it that are clearly igneous, but they've been folded and compacted and scrunched up. It's just bizarre. Let me see if I can find that PDF real quick for you. Let's see. UC Berkeley Seismology Tour PDF. There we go. Share. Copy link. Here, before it loads, I will paste it to you. There we go. Why does it say protected? Shoot, maybe that means it's not going to work. The Hayward Fault maps and tours. See if I can download that one. Let me know if that link is working for anybody. Because if not, I think I have... Let's see. Oops, not nearby. Send file. I hate how they don't have a thing for just copy link. It's so annoying. That's really dumb. Anyway, let me check. It works? Alright, great. Excellent. Well, let me see if I can find it in that link real quick. Guide to a brief walking tour. I remember when I first moved back to California in 2018, it was just a little while before my birthday, actually, in late September. And so for my birthday, I treated myself to a walking tour of the Berkeley campus, checking out all the geology and everything, using that PDF as a guide. And remote. There we go. Founders Rock at the corner of Hearst Avenue and Gailey Road. UC Berkeley's lore has it that the campus, and by default the entire University of California system, was founded on April 16th, 1860, at this unique rock outcrop, now hidden under trees and behind bushes at the corner of Hearst Avenue and Gailey Road. Never mind that the actual founding of the university happened on March 23rd, 1868, when then Governor Henry Haight signed into law the Charter Act. Blah, blah, blah. Nevertheless, location is special to the university, being the highest point above sea level in the northeast corner of the original campus. The view across campus and over San Francisco Bay must have been spectacular before Corey Hall was built in 1950, obstructing the overlook. That's not this building here. It must be another one. Actually, it could be this one. This building looks a little bit more modern than 1950. But it could always have been renovated. While its north and east sides are thickly covered with moss and lichen, the west side reveals the rock's origin. That's the side right over here. Check that out. Just really weird and scrungy. Looking at it up close, it seems to be volcanic ash baked together with small fragments of rhyolite. Another volcanic material. Okay. These two observations make Founders Rock a volcanoclastic welded tuff with rhyolitic composition. I am not an igneous geologist, so that's why I didn't recognize that as what it is right off the bat. But it is clearly volcanic. You've got kind of lava rock texture and some of this stuff that's really distinctive. but there's just all kinds of other weird things baked into it. You've got these weird, like, siliciclastic things, like almost kind of quartz-like. Just really weird. Totally strange. And then over here, yeah, it just starts looking more like your typical lava rock. Really slow cooling. So you get all those like bubble holes in it. I'm sure there's a specific geologic term for that. I just don't know it off the top of my head. But where does this strange outcrop come from? When there is no volcano in sight anywhere on campus. One plausible hypothesis is based on the fact that Founders Rock is very similar to a rock type from the Jurassic period, which was quarried for decades at Leona Quarry at the upper end of Hagenberger Road in Oakland, the so-called Leona Rhyolite. The tectonic movement of the Hayward Fault, so the hypothesis goes, carried the rock to its current location almost 10 miles northwest of the quarry. If this is true, then Founders Rock formed when dinosaurs still roamed the planet, which predates the founding of the university by more than 150 million years. Confirming this hypothesis, however, is not that easy. There's a thin section of the piece of Founders Rock. It is less than 1/10 of an inch thick and molded into clear plastics. The light can shine through it. They made a slide so that they could look at a thin section of this rock. The section reveals the reddish color of the rock, but also shows clear veins which are filled with minerals called calcite. When the author of this guide asked Paul Rennie, the director of the Berkeley Geochronology Center, I've worked with Paul Rennie before. I've done field work with him and some of his graduate students in the Hell Creek back in, it must have been 2013 and 2014, I think. Paul Rennie's a really cool guy. A leading scientist in Mesozoic geochronology. He is, somebody I admire a lot. So he responded, this rock has a tortured history. It is completely recrystallized and metasomatized to the point that I can't tell what kind of rock it was originally, and may have undergone major deformation and brittle shear, but the texture is so heavily overprinted with carbonate and other secondary minerals that even that is hard to say. It seems that for right now, Founders Rock shall remain an enigma. Pretty cool, I think. I'm so glad we looked that up. Looks like it needs a good washing. Yeah. That rock rocks. You're right, Gator McDusky. You're right. Yeah. And yeah, somebody dumped their bottles in the rock. You're right, Sophara. Hey, Andy Stingray. How are you doing? Good to see you. Anyway, at this point, we will continue on from wonderful and mysterious Founders Rock to maybe the most dramatic piece of geology on campus, the Hayward Fault. And I think I actually came up with a command this morning. Did I do that? Type in !Hayward, Hayward, and there's some information on the Hayward Fault there. It's not as famous as the San Andreas Fault, the one that caused the great 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire, but it is still very formidable, and it runs right here through the UC Berkeley campus. Here, I should also do a quick intro, I feel, now that we've got some new people watching too. For anybody who just waltzed in recently, welcome to Paleontologizing. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. I'm doing an IRL outdoor live stream while I still have mobile data to use it for. Last week and then a month prior to that, I was on this great big road trip going all across the American West, visiting different museums and field sites and all kinds of cool fossil stuff. So check out the VODs from that. It was really neat. But now I am back home in the San Francisco Bay Area, and right now I'm streaming to you live from the campus at the University of California, Berkeley. I have kind of a history here. I worked here when I was in high school at the University of California Museum of Paleontology, or UCMP as we call it. And that was really kind of how I got my start in this field. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for that. So shout out to UCMP. We'll see if we can actually visit some of the public displays in that big academic building at the end of this stream. But for right now, we're going to go walk over to Memorial Stadium, and we'll see if we can spot the Hayward Fault that actually bisects the stadium, kind of cuts it in two. To the point where, since this is an active fault, the east side of the stadium is traveling. All right, let me know if we're back. All right, we're all good now? Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. The camera turned off for some reason, and I don't know why. What was the last thing you remember me saying? I was kind of going off on a tangent. Yeah. Okay, cool. And Diagonal says the architect of the stadium was furious that his design was built on top of a fault line. Well, I seem to recall that you're probably right about that. And there is the stadium up there. California Memorial Stadium. But I seem to recall that they actually built the stadium in two parts. So essentially it's not one big solid structure, it's two halves. And they're kind of built on either side of the fault. So it's kind of built to sort of slowly shear apart. Which is smart, because they knew about the fault when they were building it. I don't know, I guess there weren't a lot of spots where they could build the stadium, and they said, well, this spot has one of the most active faults in the entire world running through it. We'll build it here. And so they did. And why would you purposely build a university on a fault line? I think the university, it was almost like the fact that they built a university here meant that they discovered there was a fault line. I'm pretty sure it was geologists who taught at Berkeley who discovered the Hayward Fault. Just right in their own backyard. And then by that point, it was already the flagship campus in the whole University of California system. And they said, well, we're just going to roll with it. And they did. And so far, it's worked out well. I mean, there hasn't been a major earthquake on this fault since 1868. But that, well, it just means that it's going to happen in the future. And yeah, I don't know. All right, so right now we are, I think these are the tennis courts over here. This big parking garage underneath. So we're gonna go walk past this. And yeah, there's the path that we're looking for up there. Good. This is not nearly as long a walk as I remember. And yeah, Diagonal, you're exactly right. The entire East Bay does lie on or adjacent to a fault line. Several fault lines, actually. The Hayward Fault is really the biggest one for the East Bay. But then you go further south, and it kind of joins up with the Calaveras Fault, which runs to the east of San Jose. And then to the west, running through well, it kind of runs adjacent to most of the San Francisco Peninsula as the San Andreas Fault. So the San Andreas Fault is the one that seems to have produced the great big 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fault. But here's an interesting tidbit for everybody. Back in 1868, the Hayward Fault ruptured and produced a massive earthquake. And that used to be called the Great San Francisco Quake until the one in 1906. which was far worse and far more devastating. And then that one got called the Great San Francisco Quake. Really, it was the fire more than the earthquake that was the more devastating part in 1906. There were like gas lines that ruptured, and all these wooden structures burned. Check this out right here.
I don't know if grizzly bears actually get this big. They get close, at least. Just looking at the size of the head, that's bigger than any grizzly skull I've ever seen.
Man, it's a shame to think these guys went completely extinct over the course of our state's history. You know, kind of an emblem of the state of California, just completely wiped out, the California grizzly. I mean, you could argue about whether you'd call that extinction or extirpation. Extinction is when an entire species goes extinct. Extirpation is when you just have like a particular, it's like within a certain area, they're completely wiped out. So you could say that the subspecies went extinct, I suppose. But you could also say that grizzly bears were extirpated within the state of California. You know, tomato, potato. It's tragic either way. But what a cool sculpture. All right, we're gonna walk up this way, up the stairs.
And there it is, right up there, is where the fault is.
Wish you had Lordy for scout, right, Javasaurus? Well, if Lordy is 12'5", then that bear has to be about 25 feet tall. And Nanotyrannus, hey, I'm glad I'm back home too. Thanks, it's good to see you. And, wow, okay, let's see here. There is... I don't know if we're going to be able to get into. Let me see if I can shrink this down a little bit less inconspicuous, a little bit more inconspicuous. I'll take this off too. The sound might change a little bit. I take the mic off. But let's see. Everybody still see me? So the Hayward Fault runs right along here. You see that concrete box right there? That, if I remember correctly, there are seismological instruments in there. In order to measure the fault creep. Yeah, this is it right here. So I wish I could open it up and show you, but obviously I can't. But yeah, right there. Within this are some instruments that actually measure the motion, the movement of this fault very, very slowly. At about the same rate that your fingernails grow, this fault is just creeping along. And occasionally, it gets kind of stuck for a while. And the pressure builds up, and then it lurches forward again. That's what causes an earthquake. So yeah. Right over here. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to show you the actual fault, but there's a crack that runs through the stairwell over there that corresponds directly to the Hayward Fault. Pretty neat. Well, let's see if we can go take a look. I'll put a mask on real quick, just for courtesy's sake, so they can't yell at me for that. And let's see here. I want to say it's along this stairwell that we actually have a crack running through here. That could be it right there. Oh. think it is, though. Well, I don't know. Let's go back around the other side, and I'll see if I can actually show you by the gate where the actual offset is, because it is pretty cool. Your inner 7-year-old needs to know. I know, me too, Anita. There, I'll show you. Okay. You want to go take a look real quick? Let's go. Okay. So it should be just beyond this over here. You can see the offset between the two bricks. Right over here. Should be just over here. Right up. There, you see that? That was where the stadium is kind of being shorn. This side is going south, this side is going north. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Cool stuff. It's not often that you get to see, you know, tectonic forces just clear as day like that. So it's really, really neat to be able to show that to you. So how cool is that? Hayward Fault, right there. That's awesome. I don't remember there being that like metal plate there before. But yeah. Pretty cool. That's geology in action, baby. Very, very neat. Right here at Memorial Stadium at UC Berkeley. You know, we always had morbid jokes about this when I worked at the museum. Be like, it was awfully thoughtful of them to name it Memorial Stadium before the fact, you know? At least they won't have to rename it afterwards. Site of a major fault like that. Let me reattach our microphone. There we go. But yeah. But I mean, that being said, jokes aside, the stadium was built with the fault in mind. And I think anywhere in the world outside of maybe Japan, the UC Berkeley campus has some of the best seismic engineering around. So that's at least some small consolation, right? But the thing is, the Hayward Fault has not had a major slip in about close to 160 years now. Not since 1868. And a little bit of pressure has been taken off, we think, with slips of the San Andreas Fault. But even so, there are, we're due for another big quake sometime soon. In fact, I think I have a command. Somebody type in !quake. I put it together a command for that this morning. Talking about the risk of a major earthquake happening in the next few years.
Big stuff, isn't it? 70 feet long. Tip the scales at a substantial 35.
And what you can do to help, prepare yourself and your family for that. Alright, let me make sure we're still good. And it's You're
not even a good liar.
And let's see. Oh shoot, Claire, you made a command for that too? That's not great. Well, anyway, everybody who's watching, if you happen to live in earthquake country, look up how to make like an earthquake preparedness bag or box that you can keep in your home, at your workplace, in your car, so that in the event of a big earthquake, you know, you'll be prepared. This is really important stuff. If you live in a place like coastal California that is prone to earthquakes, you know, you really should do that to help protect yourself and your family and your loved ones. Yeah. And Diagonal, there are cycads and ginkgos nearby. And if I'm able to get into the VLSB, I will show you some that they have there right outside the Gypsum Herbarium. They've got some beautiful cycads there. And yeah, Kate Butts. Interesting, Dark Naze. Where is that, if you don't mind my asking? We actually had an earthquake not too long ago where I live. It was actually captured. It was live on stream. You remember that, Moosey Fate? Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I could have walked down there. I don't think so. Oh, you know what? I could have. That's a shortcut. I'm gonna go take that. We're gonna go down this way. Oh, and Chai Latte Nebula. New Zealand, you get earthquakes all the time. Interesting. New Zealand's a very interesting part of the world in terms of its geology and its paleontology, too. I had some friends who... I have a friend who did his doctorate down in New Zealand at the University of Otago. Bobby Bosenecker, the whaleontologist. He's a paleontologist who studies fossil whales and pinnipeds and all kinds of other cool critters. And they apparently have a wealth of whale fossils from New Zealand, which is pretty neat. And just modern whale specimens, too. Anyway, we're walking down through the Berkeley campus. There's the Campanile up there again. I do like that there's kind of a landmark in the middle of campus that you can always orient yourself to. It always helped me when I was trying to figure out where things were when I was here. And it's helping with that right now. Got some more of these beautiful redwoods here. Check those out. Oh, man. Just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So these, of course, have been around since, I think, the early Jurassic, redwoods like this. I know they were... We've got something similar to a redwood in the Morrison Formation, if I remember correctly. They're really cool. These are a really great proxy for figuring out what climates were like in ancient environments. We used to have redwoods going all the way out to Nevada. And redwoods today only really exist along the coast. They get a lot of their moisture from the air. They kind of, you know, just take in all of this morning fog all the time. And that's where they get a large portion of their water from. And so you only really get them along this narrow belt along the coast. from like Central California up through Oregon, I think. I don't think they go up through Washington. Do they go up through Washington too? I can't remember. But yeah, just this really, really narrow belt along the coast there, which, lucky for us, encompasses Berkeley as well. So yeah. About 110 million years old. Is that it, Dark Mace? I thought they were significantly older than that. That would put them in, like, I don't know, like the mid-Cretaceous? Huh. Yeah, but I'll show you how they reproduce sometimes. You've got these clones that kind of pop off of the base here.
This redwood. And this one here. Just kind of growing out of the base of the tree. Like that.
So they can reproduce, like, sexually through, their cones like that get pollinated, or they can reproduce via clones like that. And I think that happens to be like if the adult tree, dies in a fire or gets knocked over for some reason, maybe it gets too tall or there's a landslide or something, that basically it can kind of regrow through those clones at the bottom, which is really neat. And a lot of plants reproduce that way. Cycads do the same thing.
You can propagate them from the clones. Sometimes they're called pups. They grow out of the base. There's Strawberry Creek again.
Oh, and this is really cool. We've got some kind of holly right here.
This also dates back to the Mesozoic. This is a pretty ancient plant. These have been around since the time of the dinosaurs. Pretty cool.
Those are a tree that are associated with, with like the holiday season, Christmas and stuff like that. They've been around for a very long time. Interesting. Jurassic deposits. Oh, cool. Thank you, Claire. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Something that's not quite a modern redwood. I mean, it's not in the same genus. It's not within genus Sequoia, but is similar morphologically. And you see that in a lot of like reconstructions of Mesozoic environments. You see redwood type trees. And I assumed that there was a reason for that it wasn't just completely wrong. I don't know. All right.
Walk along this way over here. This tree's not doing so hot. Which is a shame. It's such an old, beautiful tree. I wonder what that is.
Yeah, diagonal metasequoia dates back to the like Cretaceous, so the early Paleogene, I want to say. It's one of those trees that I think was originally known from fossils and then discovered to still be alive in certain parts of the world, which is really, really neat. Alright, we're going to continue on through here.
More coast redwoods.
Oh, here's a lovely fern right here. This must be looks like a western sword fern, probably. Check that out. Beautiful.
If you go up to Muir Woods and you're lucky enough to walk through there, you will see lots and lots of beautiful sword ferns. Some of them get really, really big.
Unfortunately, they tend to get choked out by this English ivy that you see growing all over the place. We had this in the San Francisco Presidio, too, when I worked there. Yeah, like the occasional sword fern and then just English ivy everywhere, which is invasive. It's not from this area. It tends to outcompete some of the native plants. Yeah, look at the size of this redwood trunk. Wow. And just look at the bark up close. It's got that kind of hairy texture to it. It's so cool.
What a remarkable living thing.
Very, very cool. You know, I saw a little documentary thing once where some researchers put microphones, they like kind of drilled them into I don't remember if it was a coast redwood or if it was a giant sequoia, but there's like an audible kind of slurping noise that the tree makes as it draws water up from its roots, as it goes up through the xylem. Really just amazing. You don't think of plants making sounds, but this is an actual mechanical sound that this tree was making. All internal. Really, really neat. Okay, you know, we'll go up this way. I'll take you past the Haunted Mansion building. My friends used to call it that, but I forget what the actual name of the campus building is. But it's one of the oldest buildings on campus, and it was originally the site, it was the first site of the Museum of Paleontology, back when it was first established. And there it is right there. kind of creepy old Victorian building. Victorian? Edwardian? I'm not even sure. It's old either way. At least old by the standards of, you know, U.S. buildings on the West Coast. Compare that to anything in Europe, and it doesn't compare. Not nearly as old, but by California standards, this is an old building right here. Yeah, so for its inception, this was the location of the first Museum of Paleontology on campus. And it was established by Annie Montague Alexander, who was kind of a wealthy naturalist and explorer and benefactor. She established not just the Museum of Paleontology, but also the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology. And her family is actually like kind of tied in with my own in a really interesting way. I want to figure out some more details about that and then share it with you, because I think it would be really neat to explore. Yeah. And Victorian is before 1900. Oh, okay, diagonal. This might even be before that. Right? No, it probably is Victorian. Yeah. Here, we'll go take a look. And we'll check out these magnolias, too.
Yeah, so there's the building right there.
Been beautifully restored.
Yeah. If we have any Disneyland fans in the chat, this might remind you of the Haunted Mansion.
Which I think is why everybody called it that when I went here. But here we've got this lovely magnolia tree. Check this out. We've got some flowers just starting right there. But magnolias have also been around since the Mesozoic.
They show up in like the early Cretaceous, I want to say, maybe middle Cretaceous. It's one of the oldest. Well, I don't know for sure. They're maybe among some of the oldest flowering plants in still around. This lineage goes back a long, long way.
So presumably there were dinosaurs that ate these, which is pretty cool. I like magnolias a lot. One of my favorite plants. One of my favorite flowering plants. All right, now we're getting closer to the current site of the museum today. And let's see here. Now I wish it were nice and clear today so you could see this magnificent view, but it's pretty hazy.
And there's some fog over there too. You probably can't see it in the camera, but I can just barely make out the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz right through there. And on a lovely clear day, you can see that. I've even seen the Farallon Islands from way up on the hill in Berkeley before. But today it's a little too hazy for that. Let me know if you can see. And now UCMP is still closed. Well, like the public display area might be open. That's what I've got my fingers crossed for. So I can show you. There's not a whole lot there, but there's a few things that I'd like to point out. Yeah. And Jedi Mega Man asks, isn't it forest fire smoke plus haze? I think some of it is, and some of it is just going to be coastal fog, too. It was really hazy this morning, but it seems to have cleared up a little bit. Yeah, we're going to walk down this way, and we'll go see if the building is open, so I can show you a few of these public displays that they have down there. So cross your fingers, everybody. Man, it's funny being back. So I used to hang out at the museum a lot before COVID. Just like every once in a while I'd meet friends here, or like we'd talk about research. I'd go to fossil fuel or fossil coffee, that kind of thing. And basically all that stopped during COVID. Some of it went remote over Zoom, and I wasn't able to attend most of those because I was always streaming at the same time. So we'll see, now that I'm going full-time with streaming, if maybe I can engineer my schedule so that I can still attend some of those, but we'll see. Alright. Making our way down here. Here's just some of the exhausts for the steam tunnels under campus. So, somewhere on campus there's a great big building that generates a ton of steam, and it gets piped through all of these subterranean corridors. Like right here, if I stand on this, it's going to be really warm. Well, not that warm. It might be off right now. But, yeah. And apparently you can tour those on Cal Day every year. It's like one day of the year when certain things are open to the public on campus. But the thing is, it's also the one day of the year that the museum collections were open to the public, which meant that I was always helping out with that, volunteering during Cal Day. Usually my station was underneath the big T-Rex skeleton, answering everybody's questions. So yeah, I never got a chance to actually explore the steam tunnels. Would have been cool, but, you know, my place is with the fossils. And that place is here. This is again the Valley Life Sciences building. This is the building on campus that UCMP is located in the basement. And at the time that this was first built, I think in like the late 20s or maybe the 1930s, this building had the largest footprint of any building west of the Mississippi River in the U.S., or presumably in North America. I doubt they had anything in Canada or Mexico with a bigger footprint. But yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty ornate architecture. I like the griffins up there and the bison skulls. Very cool. So I figured this is how we'll end the stream. If I can get in there, I'll show you around briefly to show you some of the different displays and that kind of thing. And then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. And Dr. Doc says, stream brings back a lot of childhood memories. Wow, super cool, Doc. That's really neat. Glad I could bring back some good memories for you. Oh, here, let me put my mask on real
real quick. Take this off. And okay, that's a short stream. Well, we're not done yet. Hopefully not. See if the doors are open. Also, I remember connectivity always being really bad, like cell phone reception being terrible in this building. So I apologize if it cuts out. But yeah. Alright, we're in. So, this is the Valley Life Sciences building. These are the public displays, which I am showing you, you know, for the sake of public education and outreach. If you would like to make a donation to the University of California Museum of Paleontology, then you can find out how to do that on their website. It's ucmp.edu, if I remember correctly. Claire, could you pull it up maybe? But yeah. So I will... Oops. And I wonder if... Here, let me see if I can set up the Wi-Fi real quick. Should have EduRoam, I think. It used to be really bad in here, but I've heard it got better recently. So we'll try that. And let's see if that does us any good. There we go. Well, no luck. It's probably one of those things where you have to like select a bunch of, you know, like agree to some disclaimers on the website or something. And there you go. Thank you, Ripsta. Appreciate that. And Darknace, thank you. Yeah, UCMP could definitely use your support. So, if you have the wherewithal to throw a few bucks their way, please do. Tell them I sent you. Back around, it must have been probably 2007 or 2008, these displays went in. These are some of the newest ones that they have here. Does anybody know what this animal is right here? This is, again, our state fossil, Smilodon, saber-toothed cat. And there's a domestic cat for scale right there. Pretty cool. So again, these are from Rancho La Brea. Like I said, there's a lot of these fossils that are up within Sather Tower. But this one, this is certainly a composite skeleton. This is not going to be all bones from the same animal. Because generally at La Brea, everything gets all mixed up. And so I'm sure this is like a bunch of different individual animals that contributed bones to the skeleton. But really, really cool. Take a look at that mouth. I hope the glare isn't too bad. But yeah. And there are some shots of the actual excavations at La Brea. I wish they had some pictures there at La Brea, because this would have been really useful. Yeah. Just look at that hodgepodge of all those different fossils. Yeah. You can see there's a horse skull right there. A scapula, maybe also from a horse. Looks like a big piece of a mammoth pelvis, or maybe a skull. There's a direwolf skull right there too. All jumbled up. And that's what Rancho La Brea used to look like. There are oil rigs all over the place for extracting oil. And I wonder if that is the lake pit right there that we walked around. But nowadays, this is downtown Los Angeles, that picture. And so this is pretty cool. Nice little timeline here. Rancho La Brea and fauna. your lifetime right there. And this is just, again, this timeline that you see here is the smallest sliver of the history of life on Earth. I mean, yeah. Really neat, though. Really neat. Oh, and I really like this too. Here, I'll show you this kind of in succession. This has to do with paleoanthropology, which the paleoanthropology program here at Berkeley is one of the most famous in the world. Yeah. And so I like how this kind of incorporates a physical display with a photograph right here. Really neat. And so this looks like fieldwork going on in Ethiopia, maybe? Yeah, the background photo captures activity in the field camp of F. Clark Howell during the 1973 expedition to Omo Valley of southern Ethiopia. Cool. It's a really well-provisioned field site. Look at that weirdo crocodile skull right there. That's super neat. A geology hammer that's clearly never been used. Normally these monitors would be going, I'm sure during the school year they'll turn them on. But yeah, these are some various bits of paleoanthropological research that have been undertaken here at Berkeley. This is a gorilla skeleton? No, an orangutan. Very cool. Yeah. Can you see the resemblance here? Yeah, pretty uncanny, right? And there, I love this. R.I.P. Lucy. Did we get some F's in the chat for Lucy? This is Australopithecus afarensis, that famous human ancestor fossil. Very cool. Cold case. Wow. Really neat. And then we have Siamang, kind of extant primate. Again, this is just to show you the resemblance between all of these different relatives. This is a chimpanzee right here. This is our closest living relative. And you can really see the resemblance between that and between us. Very pensive look on that person. I like that a lot. And then here, we've got a nice series of family portraits. Here's a Siamang, like we talked about. Orangutan. Gorilla. Chimpanzee. And here's us. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Anyway, let's continue on. Let's see. So I wish we could get into there, but that's the Life Sciences Library. And there are some beautiful Triceratops specimens right there in the lobby. We can kind of see them from out here. That's the UCMP library trike. We were talked about the two named valid species of Triceratops. Triceratops horridus at the bottom of the Hell Creek, Triceratops prorsus at the top of the Hell Creek. This one is one right in the middle. So that is what could be called Triceratops intermedius. This seems to be the same thing, from the same stratigraphic horizon as Yoshi's trike, the Triceratops that I dug up in the Hell Creek. the big one right there, and that is the real skull. That is the real fossil bone right there, with other parts filled in. You can see part of the beak and like the maxillae; those are filled in, but the horns are real, and they are really big. I seem to recall somewhere hearing
The
that
world's first armored tank, you might say.
the Triceratops
That trunk is
featured in
completely
Jurassic
covered with
Park.
thin,
The
bony
ILM artists
plates.
actually used the UCMP library trike as like a basis for that. So it's really well represented in popular culture, you could say. Right there next to it is, that's Juvie Trike 3 right next to it, I think. The Museum of the Rockies specimen. And then on the other side of it is the baby Triceratops, the same one that I have a 3D print of back in my office. The original, of course, that used to be in Mark Goodwin's office. I'm sure it's somewhere in collections now at UCMP. Yeah. We've got a lovely pteranodon skeleton up there. Triceratops halfway up us. There you go, Michael T. Meyer. I've heard the name floated. It might be Triceratops. Well, I probably shouldn't tell you what the name might be. It's very self-explanatory, but I don't know. The person who named it might get mad if I say it first. But anyway, we've got a lovely pteranodon skeleton right here. Really, really cool. But before we get to that, let me show you some of the other smaller displays that we have over in this direction. Yeah. And Claire says, do I know how long this building has been like this? Since about the early 90s. Yeah, I think it was like 1992 or 3 that, this building was reconfigured and the Museum of Paleontology moved down there. It may have even been the late 80s. I forget. But they used to have even more displays back when it was over in McCone Hall, back when the museum was over in the geology building. They had a big Dilophosaurus up on the wall, and that has since been moved to City College in San Francisco. I'd love to do a live stream from there, but I think that's still closed. Anyway, chat will be very familiar with this animal at this point. We've seen so many casts and mounts of this over the summer. This is the same one that I have in my office, Archaeopteryx. This is, of course, the Berlin specimen. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Give me a 1 in chat if you're not familiar with this critter and you want me to tell you a little bit about it, because I'd be happy to. And holy cow, Apocalypse, thank you so much for those gift subs. Really appreciate that. That's brilliant. Thank you kindly. Holy cow. Excellent. All right, awesome. Well, we've got a bunch of cool new people here. Let's see, Vega Altair Denim, Jedi Mega Man, Scoop Dumb Cookies, Blobby Kane, Gator McDusty. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Archaeopteryx. So, Archaeopteryx was first discovered, I think, in 1861. And it was tremendously important because just a few years before that, Charles Darwin published his big treatise on natural selection, or evolution as we call it now. He used to call it descent with modification. He actually doesn't use the word evolution at all in the book on the origin of species. Nowhere. He calls it descent with modification, which is, it's almost a better descriptor. Anyway, in this book he posits that, living things change over time, and so that every living thing that we have today came from something earlier. Creatures adapt to their ecosystems, they adapt to changing conditions, and, the ones that are best adapted to their environments are the ones that survive and, have more offspring, and, everything kind of perpetuates itself like that. But there was kind of a problem at the time, and it was that while he had lots and lots of evidence from living animals, lots of examples of living animals changing to adapt to changing circumstances, and captive breeding and stuff like that, coming up with all kinds of different kinds of dogs and cats and pigeons and what have you. He did not have a lot of evidence from the fossil record. And he spends a lot of time in that book kind of apologizing for this, saying hey, I'm really sorry that we don't have the evidence from the fossil record yet. And that's, I think he didn't really realize how much evidence would be found in the future. And so I'm sure he felt really, really vindicated when this creature was discovered just a few years afterward, Archaeopteryx, which is this lovely kind of transition point between reptiles and birds. So it'd been a big mystery, like, where did birds come from? If birds evolved from earlier life forms, then, what does the transition look like? It looks like Archaeopteryx. So, like a modern bird, it's got these beautiful flight feathers coming off of its wings and its tail like that. It's got these lovely hollow bones and very avian bone structure. But it also has some really bizarre other features. It's got a long, bony tail right there. It's got teeth in its mouth, very reminiscent of like a theropod dinosaur. And it's got claws on its hands, on its wings. So things that modern birds don't really have. And so it's funny, at the time, this is thought of as a transition between reptiles and birds, because they failed to recognize that this is basically a dinosaur. So, like, sure, it's a reptile, but it's a dinosaurian reptile. So it wasn't until like the 1970s or 1980s that it really became clear that, like, hey, this thing is a dinosaur. So it's not a link between reptiles and birds, it's a link between specifically dinosaurs and birds. And so I think there's a dozen different specimens of Archaeopteryx all around the world right now. They're not rare by like fossil animal standards, I guess, but just for how famous they are and how important. It is pretty interesting that we only have 12 specimens so far. But they are incredibly important. This is the first earliest bird that we have. Someday, somebody will find one that's earlier. But for the time being, Archaeopteryx is as early and as primitive as it gets, So yeah. And there we go. Here's Heterodontosaurus right here. This is an early ornithischian dinosaur, early like bipedal plant-eating dinosaur with a beak at the front. And you'll see, these are all casts, by the way. None of the fossils that you see here are going to be originals. These are all casts. The original one for this, hopefully it's back in South Africa. That's where it's from. But despite being a plant-eating dinosaur, it's got these lovely canine teeth right there at the front of its jaw. We still don't really know what those are for. Maybe for defense against predators, maybe for display, maybe for fighting amongst rivals of the same species. We don't really know. There's another kind of very similar dinosaur from South Africa from the same time and place called a Brictosaurus, if I remember correctly. That one doesn't seem to have the canine teeth. So that's been variously interpreted as a different species or a different genus, or maybe just a female of this same species. We don't really know yet. We don't have enough specimens. It could also be pathological. Maybe it just doesn't have the canines. Because like all dinosaurs, they would have constantly replaced their teeth, so, sometimes you lose the canines and then they're just not there. Maybe that's the story. I don't know. And of course we have one of everybody's favorites, Parasaurolophus right here. Check out that crest. Now, we've seen a lot of these guys over the course of the summer, but I'm always happy to come across one. Give me a 2 in chat if you really like this dinosaur, if this is one of your favorites. It's a very charismatic one. This is a big old duckbill dinosaur. This is actual size, by the way. That crest gets really, really long. It's like approaching 2 meters there. And it starts there, at the beak, at the front of its head. There's the nostrils, the nares right at the front. And then, this is a nasal passageway. It goes all the way up there, and then it loops back around. And then it goes down through the skull, like to the animal's windpipe. So yeah, really, really neat. All dinosaur, one of your favorites? Well, Lenina, that's a good answer. Yeah. Concrete says, are Archaeopteryx endemic to a specific region? So far, they've only been found in Germany, in Bavaria, actually. I think they've all been found at a place called Solnhofen in Bavaria. These really beautiful limestone beds there where you get really well-preserved fossils. They've not been found anywhere else, to my knowledge. That's why I say that someday we'll find an earlier bird and it'll probably be from somewhere else. But right now, Archaeopteryx is the earliest we've got. Anyway, for Parasaurolophus here, these crests are really, really important. Like, imagine you're a duck-billed dinosaur and you're walking around doing your thing, and like, as a species, you put through all this effort into developing this big, crazy head ornament like this. Like, why should this be so important to your fitness as a species that you would evolve a crazy structure like that? It seems to be a resonating chamber. It seems to be involved with, like, communication, because the tube is hollow and it's hooked up to the animal's respiratory system. And so you can actually make, like, a replica of this and blow through it and try and figure out what it sounded like. It seems to be a really, really low frequency call. But the cool thing is, as these animals grow and mature, the crest also changes throughout the animal's lifespan. So when these animals are first born, when they first hatch, the crest is really, really small. It's just barely there. And it continues to lengthen and become more dramatic like that as the animal matures. So as the crest is changing in shape and everything, I mean, the frequency of its calls would also change. So the young ones would sound a lot different from the adults. If this is something that they're using to keep in constant communication with each other as they move around as a herd, then it's like each individual animal would kind of have its own, almost its own auditory fingerprint almost. They'd be able to tell who's who and who's where by listening to these different calls. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Another important thing I should point out too, you'll see in a lot of, like, popular media and paintings and books and even some documentaries and stuff like that, this animal living alongside Tyrannosaurus. It did not. This animal's from the Campanian epoch. It's from significantly earlier than T-Rex. It would have lived alongside maybe Gorgosaurus or Daspletosaurus, other tyrannosaurs, but not Tyrannosaurus rex. So anytime that you see this dinosaur being chased by a T-Rex, no, that's a mistake. Yeah. So these animals had something like voice mutation? I guess dark maze, I guess. Yeah. And at Circus, there must be so much about sound that we don't know yet. Absolutely, yeah. And let's see. And Cade Melia says, couldn't it just be its nose? Well, I mean, it is part of its nose. Look, it goes from the nostrils right there, all the way to the back of its head, and then all the way down, and then down through the skull, like to the windpipe. So, those are the nasal bones that make up part of the crest. Yeah. So you could think of it as like an extension of its nose, sure, if you want to. The cool thing is, during the time that this animal was alive, there were other duck-billed dinosaurs that also had all kinds of crazy, diverse-looking crests. So yeah, this time would have been a pretty noisy one in Earth's history, I would imagine. And each of those different animals would have, probably their crests were really brightly colored, so they could recognize each other visually, and they could tell who is a member of which species. So, you know, you don't waste your time trying to court members of a different species. But they'd also sound very differently too, because they had very different shaped crests. Kind of like different woodwind instruments, sounding different. It's the same thing with Lambeosaurine duck-billed dinosaurs. Speaking of duck-billed dinosaurs, here's a Hadrosaurine duckbill. This is Maiasaura, and this is a little baby one. Now this is a cast of one from Museum of the Rockies, which I also visited this summer. You should check out the VOD from that. It was a good one. But yeah. So this is the dinosaur that made my old body. It's a funny story because, well, let me tell you. He grew up in Montana. He was actually born in a tent in Montana. His father owned like a gravel quarry. And before they ended up building a house, they lived in a tent up near Shelby, Montana. And Jack Horner was like severely dyslexic growing up, and so all of his teachers just assumed that he was slow or something. They never treated him well. He hated school, but he would go out and collect fossils. And when he was just 8 years old, he discovered his first dinosaur bone, and he was hooked after that. He led kind of an interesting life, kind of bouncing around after that. He worked as a truck driver for a while. He actually got drafted into the Vietnam War, into the Marines. Apparently it's one of the few times when the U.S. Marines actually had a draft. And so yeah. But then he came back from there. You know, he made it through the war. Ended up getting a job as a fossil preparator in New Jersey. Like it in New Jersey. He wanted to go back to Montana. So he'd go back every chance he got. And at one point he's on a road trip near his home in western Montana. And he visits a rock shop there. He wouldn't have actually gone there in the first place if it hadn't been for Bill Clemens. William A. Clemens is a big name in vertebrate paleontology. He worked here at the University of California Museum of Paleontology for decades and decades. And he's an authority on Mesozoic mammals from the late Cretaceous period. And Bill Clemens, he just had such an impact upon so many people's careers. In this instance, he said to Jack, hey, you should visit this rock shop. They've got some really interesting fossils there. I think you could identify some of them for them. And so Jack went to this rock shop, and he found some bones of this animal in a coffee can there. The owners of the rock shop brought these out, and they're like, what do you make of these? These little tiny bones in a coffee can. And Jack said, holy cow, those are the bones of a baby dinosaur. Nobody else has ever found anything like this anywhere in the world before. This is brand new. And it was a big deal. And so eventually he went back to the site and found this is an enormous nesting colony. Thousands of these duck-billed dinosaurs would build their nests here year after year and raise their young. He actually found hard evidence that these animals cared for their babies. They actually brought food back to the nests, just like birds do for their babies. And so this is a huge deal because it showed that, you know, dinosaurs had complex behaviors, just like modern birds. They cared for their young. These were not, you know, slow, stupid, cold-blooded, you know, dull animals. These were, you know, dynamic, intelligent, sociable, really interesting creatures. So it was a big part of what kind of made dinosaurs popular in, you know, from the 1980s onward, and kind of established them as like a legitimate research.
It's a dinosaur.
And people had studied dinosaurs all through the 20th century, but it wasn't really until after that that, you know, dinosaur paleontology really took off. So yeah, that was because of Bill Clemens from here at the museum in Berkeley. And if it hadn't been for that, I probably wouldn't be here today, you know? So you can think of, it's like, you know, old Bill Clemens, you know, flapping his Mothra-sized butterfly wings and changing everything forever. Yeah, I owe him a lot. Bill Clemens actually passed away back in November, and I used to see him pretty much every day that I worked here at the museum. He would always say hi to me. He was always so kind to me. I'm going to miss him a lot. Anyway, we're going to get into some pterosaurs now. I hope you're ready for that. I'm not even really familiar with this genus. Campylonothoides, an early Jurassic pterosaur. I don't have too much to say about this except to just point out the shape of its wings there. So pterosaurs, the name means wing lizard, but you're probably also familiar with the term pterodactyl. It's kind of like a popular term for these animals. The word pterodactyl means wing finger, and that kind of explains how these guys, how their wings are built. So you see the long wing bones right there? That's their ring finger. That's one finger right there. Those are finger bones. I'll show you over here on the pteranodon. It'll make a lot more sense. Oh, and Claire from Michael T. Mayer. Michael Meyer, I'm not sure if... It doesn't seem as though Parasaurolophus, with its big, like, you know, nasal crest, doesn't seem to be built for filtering anything out because the internal structure is just like a tube. And it changes so much over the course of the animal's life that, you know, if it had a functional purpose like that, it would probably stay the same throughout the animal's life. And you wouldn't have so many different distinct, like, morphologies for different Lamniosauran dinosaurs. Each one kind of has a different design for what their crest looks like. And if it's for a specific purpose like that, like for air filtration, then, you know, I think they'd all stick to the same design for it, you know? So yeah, that is one of the hypotheses that's been suggested before. That and like air storage or like acting like a snorkel or something, and those have pretty much all been falsified. Yeah. Anyway, right here, we've got this lovely pteranodon cast. And here you can actually see how the wing is built. So check out, those are the fingers right there on the hand. And then you see this long one coming out, that is the ring finger. That's this finger right here. Their fourth digit forms the wing membrane like that. Which is crazy to think about, isn't it? I mean, just look how long that is. Really impressive. But that's how these guys work, pterosaurs. Their wing membrane is made of that fourth digit like that. Another thing I like to point out is just how small its body is compared to the size of its head. I mean, its body is like maybe the size of a turkey's. Really, really small. And it's got this big old honking head on it. I mean, that's kind of nuts. It makes me think that we should do... This is outside my wheelhouse for sure, but somebody really ought to do some aerodynamic studies on pterosaur heads, because that is such a big
But the paleontologist field isn't narrow to what we understand.
That has to
On
have
the
a
contrary,
huge
we
impact
stretch our
on,
understanding to try and take in the
you
universe.
know, on how air flows past their body, like especially with that crest like that. And I don't know. I don't work on pterosaurs, so again, you know, outside of my wheelhouse, but it doesn't seem to me like enough work has gone into the aerodynamics of pterosaur
Hello, I'm
skulls
Sam
and
Neill
crests.
from Jurassic Park.
I bet you
Let's
there's
protect our
something
fossils,
really interesting
because
there.
if they're
I want to know
removed,
about.
America loses them
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, and Dark Gneiss, could there have been dinosaurs with trunks? It's probably not. I mean, it's been suggested before for like diplodocid dinosaurs, like Diplodocus or Apatosaurus, but it just, the evidence isn't there. There doesn't seem to be enough, like, you'd expect there to be a ton of blood vessels all going up to like the base of a trunk like that. And then, but the trunk wouldn't make any sense given the kind of teeth that these guys have. They've got little nipping teeth at the front of their mouth and no other teeth. And so they've already got a mechanism for kind of cropping vegetation. A trunk doesn't seem to have really helped with that. And also, when you're a sauropod dinosaur and you've got this super long neck, you've evolved a tiny head that uses like the least amount of blood possible, you don't want to have a big expensive organ like a trunk on the front of your head. It just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah. That being said, maybe we will in the future discover some dinosaur that had a weird soft tissue structure like that. But sauropods seem to be a really bad candidate for it, you know? Yeah. And yeah, Michael D. Mayer. Exactly. I think you're right. I mean, look at this animal. I mean, its center of gravity is like forward of its body, you would think. Although they do have remarkably light, hollow bones. So, yeah. Anyway, there's a back view of those Triceratops skulls right there. And then this is our Tyrannosaurus. It's kind of the star attraction here. Before we get to that, let's check this out. Here we have a cast of the AM&H Tyrannosaurus right here. Is this the AM&H or the Carnegie Museum one? I forget. I think this is one of Barnum Brown's T-Rexes. You could see it's slightly, like, crushed and deformed So it's not totally symmetrical. And this is typical for any time you find a dinosaur skull that's articulated like this. They tend to be at least a little bit squashed. You almost never find them perfectly preserved and not deformed. But yeah, check that out. Pretty neat, right? And I just wanted to show you the teeth in the front. So tyrannosaurs exhibit what we call heterodonty. So they actually have, you know, like cool differences in their teeth. So these teeth at the front, the premaxillary teeth, tend to be pretty small, kind of for like nipping little bits of flesh off of a carcass. And then you go around to the side and the teeth get really, really big. Those big maxillary teeth for just puncturing and crushing. Really neat. I'll give you a sense of scale here. It's an animal with a big head. Really neat. One of the more heavily built of all the theropod skulls. And then here is a skeleton right here. Those of you who are here for the Museum of the Rockies stream, you will recognize this as being the same specimen. This is the Woggle Rex. Right here, Museum of the Rockies specimen 555, which is now actually on permanent loan to the Smithsonian Institution. So if you want to see the real bones of this critter, you can see them at the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian. Yeah, I love that it's just kind of squeezed into this atrium here. The tail had to be kind of curved around like that. I don't think they could actually bend their tails that far. Most dinosaurs, like when you see them in popular media, their tails are way too waggly. Because these tails, all of those caudal chevrons on there have attachment points to the femur. Like there's a big muscle that would run from the femur right there to those caudal chevrons, called the caudofemoralis muscle. So when the animal is moving, it's... In fact, actually, hang on. Yeah, this isn't right too. I've never noticed this before, but shoot, this is not accurate. The femur can't move past the vertical on the backswing, so that leg is hyperextending backward like that. They didn't do that. That's funny. All the years, like standing under this skeleton, and I've never noticed that before. But this was mounted back in what, the early 1990s? No, mid 1990s, probably around 96 or 97. That was probably before we realized that they couldn't do that with their femurs. But yeah, not AVA compliant. There you go, right there. Yeah, pretty neat. We'll check that out a bit more in the future. Or in just a minute, I mean. Hopefully we don't lose signal when we go over here. Let me know. But right here is one of my favorite parts. And it's just a blank display right now. It's just empty. But this is prime real estate, and I have plans. I have plans, chat. So note this right now. Take notice. This is probably losing signal right now. But yeah. Let's see if it gets a little bit better over here. Let's see here. There we go. Much better. Well, over here, some herbaria right here, which is just across from UCMP. There's the entrance over there. But over here, I guess to kind of stay within theme of these dinosaur displays, we have some lovely plants whose lineages date back to the Mesozoic. Here's some horsetails right here. This is genus Equisetum. I'm not sure what species, but Equisetum something. And here are these lovely cycads. These are just gorgeous. And they're not kinds that are common in cultivation. They are, I don't know, they're really cool. Oops. It's saying no internet here. There we go. Stream installed? Good. Okay, a little longer. Good. Yeah, I'm not sure which. This is so overgrown that I can't even see the placards. Over here, I'll get a little bit more lucky. There's another beautiful cycad. This might be genus Dioon. Which one is this? There used to be a sign right here.
Dinosaur.
Yeah, Dioon spinulosum from Mexico. Right there. This lovely, beautiful cycad. With any luck, I'm going to be streaming soon from the Botanical Garden in San Francisco. And they've got a lovely ancient plants garden there. And I will be super happy to show off some of those really, really cool specimens. Let's see some more like this. I don't even know if they have a Dioon spinulosum, though. This is pretty special. Yeah, very, very cool. So, man, when I was in high school, I spent so much time sitting right here or sitting right there early in the mornings, because I would get off the train at like 7 a.m. and then I'd walk here before the museum opened, and I would just sit here and sketch or read a book or, catch up on the news or do whatever, just waiting for Pat to get here or waiting for Chris to get here so they could let me into the museum. It's back before they gave me like a key card or anything, because I was just a high schooler at the time, and they didn't really have a volunteer program yet. I was kind of at the forefront of that. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot of memories here. A lot of memories. Oh, and, Equisetum, they're not a fern, Claire Bird. They're, they're horsetails is what they are. These guys over here. So like some ferns, they do reproduce via spores, but they don't really have roots. They have rhizomes instead. And, they are really, really cool. Sometimes they get called scouring rushes. But we'll talk all about that when I do the botanical garden stream, if I get around to that. Yeah. Let's see, it keeps disconnecting. If you have horsetails in your garden, move house. There you go. Michael Mayer, yeah. They spread like crazy, and they've done that here. I remember these used to be just over in a little corner, and they've now taken over this whole plant box, and they are spreading out into here too. It's pretty impressive. They spread far and wide. Anyway, we'll go over here and I'll go ahead and wrap up the stream, I think, under the T-Rex. But man, the number of hours I've spent standing under this or sitting under it and answering questions from visitors, it's a lot. If I had $1 for every question about this, I'd be a wealthy man. Does anybody have any questions right now? Let me know. But, first of all, those of you who've been here for a bunch of these streams, tell me, is this the original fossil or is this a cast? And tell me why you know. Yeah, and I didn't notice the leg. You're right, Claire. You're right. Yeah. Another funny thing here is the cervical ribs right up inside there. They're kind of poking into the chest. So you see those little spindly bits that are coming down from the cervical vertebrae, the neck vertebrae? They're like going into the rib cage. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be kind of flush up against the coracoids, against those big sternal plates. Yeah. Bones are smooth in that front? Well, no, the bones aren't really smooth, and that's not quite. A cast, because you said the original is in the Smithsonian. There you go, Michael Meyer. Yes, you're right. But there's another, just like a visual shorthand. How can you tell that this is a cast and not the original? They drilled metal through it. There you go, Javasaurus. Yes. Exactly. Po 9014. Exactly right. You see those metal rods that are going up through the bones right there? That is characteristic of a replica or a cast. You don't put metal rods through the original bones unless you're, from the 1800s. Nobody does that nowadays, is what I should say. Yeah. Very cool.
The ponderous
Of course, back
Crocodile,
there, it's the
32
entrance
feet
to
long
the
and
actual
14
museum
feet
collections.
high.
So everything that you just saw
1,500
now,
feet,
these are part of
and not a single cavity.
public displays that are here in this academic building. The real museum is back there. And so there's just these giant, metal compactors, big, huge cabinets in there, drawers and drawers and drawers of fossils. I don't know how many millions of specimens are there in collections, but there's literally millions of specimens, millions of fossil specimens back there. It's one of the largest fossil collections in the world. And so fortunate to have been able to work here when I was in high school. It was such a wonderful opportunity. And one of the things that I did here, you see this hand right there with the two fingers? That right there. That one that you see the closest to you right now, that claw, is my creation. When I was working here one summer, I got here on a Monday morning, and the claw was missing. And it turned out, I guess they'd had some sort of event here, like a fundraiser thing, with like a bunch of like wealthy benefactors to the university, and they set up like, I don't know, the bar was probably under here or something, because this is like a really popular spot for setting up events. And apparently some like, drunken guest or benefactor had decided it would be a great idea to lean over the side of this and just snap off one of those claws as a souvenir. And so the T-Rex was missing a claw for a while. And so Pat Holroyd, who was my mentor here at the time, she's like, Danny, why don't you go ahead and replace that? And so I made a little mold and molded that claw right there, and then made a little cast out of resin and painted it to match, and then stuck it on there. And there it is right there. So you can say there's a little piece of Danny Anduza right here at UCMP. So yeah, pretty cool if you ask me. Definitely something to be proud of. So yeah, anyway. It is a good thing it's a cast, yes. So I'm going to see who else is live on Twitch right now, and we'll see if we can go ahead and do a raid. Let's see, what time is it? 1:47. Well, actually, I think... What time was Lordy supposed to start? She started at 2? Well, maybe we'll hang out for another 13 minutes. and then we'll do a raid. Because we have a few other things that we could look at here while we're here. I can go over the T-Rex skeleton and do a few other things. And then we're going to Lordy, and then I'm actually going to hop in the car and go join her for her stream. And if you guys want to find out about how Paleontologizing, how this channel is going to be changing over the next couple weeks, like all of the new exciting stuff, then I urge you to follow me over to Lordy's channel and we will get that started. Yeah. Anyway, where did chat go? There we go. Changes, yes, changes. Skatebots, exciting changes. I think you're gonna like them. Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about Stenopterygius. Hopefully the signal doesn't cut out over here. But let's see. Here we have.
I'm interested in your island. It's got nothing to do with oil. I'm a paleontologist.
Well, so you're not even a good liar.
Actual genuine fossil right here. Disconnected. Well, shoot. Let's see. Oh, Lordy, you'll be on in about 10 minutes? Well, cool. I will hang out for another 10 minutes here and just talk about the T-Rex for a little bit. And, yeah. Let's see. And we should be good now with the signal. It's funny, I'm here in this atrium right now. And the signal is excellent right here. But if I go just a little bit in that direction, I was just trying to show you what's over in that display case, and the signal dropped down to nothing. And so I guess I just got to stay here for the time being. But yeah, I can give you some lovely views of the T-Rex and the Pteranodon up there, and the Triceratops behind. And over here is an Edmontosaurus skull. Check that out right there. Really cool. Here, let's see if we can get close without the signal cutting out. Yeah. So this is a cast of an Edmontosaurus skull. And like I've said in the past, these guys are actually the largest dinosaur in the Hell Creek Formation. So in the same environment that T-Rex and Triceratops lived in, Edmontosaurus, this big duck-billed dinosaur, is actually the very biggest of all of those dinosaurs that lived at that same time in the same place. Even bigger than T-Rex. They get up to seriously like 14 meters, maybe 15 or 16. We've got some really huge specimens of these guys in Museum of the Rockies. Just enormous. They may have gotten up to like approaching 17, 18 meters, like close to 60 feet. Yeah. This well-preserved skull was collected in 1977 by a UC Museum of Paleontology field party working in the 70 to 65 million year old Hell Creek Formation of eastern Montana. Now we know that Hell Creek is about 68 to 66 million years ago. But yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. And that, is this actually the original then? I've always assumed this was a cast, but that looks pretty original. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, probably is still a cast, just a very well painted one. And what's the largest non-sauropod dinosaur? That's a great question, Bubsy. That's an excellent question. The largest non-sauropod dinosaur. It would have to be a hadrosaur, I think. It would either be, I would put it between Edmontosaurus over there and Shantungosaurus from Mongolia and China. It's another big hadrosaur. It might even be the ancestor of Edmontosaurus. Or possibly like Lamiosaurus laticatus from Mexico. Another really, really big hadrosaur. But all these guys are like maybe 50 feet long, approaching 60 feet long. Really, really big. Yeah, they're basically like duckbills that want to be sauropods. It's kind of funny. But yeah. With a weird hammer crest? Sort of, Claire, yeah. Lamiosaurus is the one that almost looks like it has kind of a hatchet-shaped crest. with like the hatchet part pointing up and the handle pointing back. Lambeosaurus, yeah. Although, I don't know, you could probably give it a different genus name and nobody would object to that. It's probably different enough from Lambeosaurus lami that you could give it a different genus name. Yeah. But yeah. And we'll take a look at some of these displays over here real quick too. So it is UCMP. UC Museum of Paleontology. And you can even scan that QR code to go to ucmp.berkeley.edu. UCMP has one of the greatest websites of any paleontology museum, and they have maybe the first website of any paleontology museum in the world. They had a website very early on in the 1990s, so they kind of led the way for like what an educational website should be. And Understanding Evolution, Paleontology Portal, Understanding Science, these are wonderful resources. If you're a teacher, if you're somebody who interfaces with the public, check these out. They are really, really great. Your one-stop source for information on evolution, how science really works, Understanding Science. These are award-winning sites. There's a tremendous amount of work that went into producing these. I couldn't recommend them more highly. Yeah. Research presentations, fossil prep. That's what it looks like inside the collections. They're just these massive compactors with cabinets and cabinets and cabinets, drawers upon drawers inside, and dozens of fossils, if not hundreds of fossils in each drawer. It's remarkable. And here are some invertebrate fossils. Some fossils from right here in California. Big old bivalve right there, like a scallop from the Miocene of California. Here's a representation of a microfossil blown way up. You can see what it would look like. It's a foram blown up 200 times. It's a piece of petrified wood, and this is a hadrosaur vertebra from right here in California. Very rare. We do not have a lot of dinosaurs in California, so that is pretty cool that you get to see one right now. Pretty much all of our dinosaurs in California are from marine sediments. So they're from dinosaurs that happen to die and then wash out to sea and get preserved in ocean floor sediments. So Let's see how we do it in terms of signal. Still doing great. This is good. And then in the Point Reyes National Seashore and Golden Gate National Recreation Area, we've got all of these cool fossils there. Oh, and look who that is. I think we've talked about him multiple times on this stream. That's famed paleontologist Bobby Bozenecker excavating fossils at Point Reyes. And that looks like Bobby's handwriting. That might be one of his specimens. It's got a B right there for that one. That's probably a Bobby specimen. Pretty cool. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to Point Reyes in California. I would highly recommend you go if you've never had the chance. Beautiful landscapes. You'll see all kinds of marine mammals and seabirds, and there are even some really stellar fossils there. Yeah. Pretty neat. Very cool stuff. Really neat. Some predatory snails right there. Predatory snails is probably not a phrase that most people are used to hearing, but gastropods can be pretty fierce. And Bubsy says, would you rather time travel to the Mesozoic or go back to influence the creation of the Jurassic World shark fossils? Bubsy, that's... Well, would I get to come back afterward? If I did, I'd much rather go back to the Mesozoic.
Hello, I'm Sam Neill from Jurassic Park.
But I don't know. That's a tough one.
If they're
That's a tough
removed,
one.
America loses them forever.
Yeah, and Kitchen Confidence. Hey, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome to Paleontologizing. For anybody who just waltzed in recently,
Jurassic Park. Digging up dinosaurs is hard, frustrating
University of
work.
California
It takes
Museum
months
of
or
Paleontology.
years, so
Here
leave
in
it to the
Berkeley,
professionals.
California. We were just outside, kind of looking at the public displays right here. The real museum is back there through those doors, but that's not publicly accessible, and I would need special permission to stream from there. But I used to work here when I was in high school, and it's one of my very favorite places in the world, and I'm so excited to be able to share it with you as kind of a nice coda to this great big road trip that I was on for the past month, visiting different museums and field sites all around the American West. Now I'm back home in the Bay Area, and back in my old stomping grounds. So, yeah, let's see here. In Kitchen Confidence? Yeah, Patagonian toothfish. That's the biological name for the Chilean sea bass. It turns out when some people were like trying to establish a fisheries for that kind of fish, they're like, how do we market this thing? Patagonian toothfish, that doesn't sound appetizing. So they're like, oh, Chilean sea bass. That sounds appetizing. So that's what they came up with. So yeah. Oh, we've got a raid going? Awesome. Hang on. Hey, thank you, Dia Thomas. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to see you here. We are here at the University of California Museum of Paleontology. We just did a quick, Earth Sciences tour of campus. We checked out the Hayward Fault that runs through Memorial Stadium here on the Berkeley campus. And now we are standing at the foot of this big T-Rex skeleton cast. If you're ever in Berkeley, California, and you've got some time to spare, definitely drop by and come see some of the dinosaur specimens here. So this right here is a cast of the Wonkel Rex. So this is a specimen that was discovered in 1988 by Kathy Wonkel, who was a local in eastern Montana. And she didn't know what she'd found at the time, but she picked up some pieces of it and she brought it to Museum of the Rockies in Montana, where I used to work. And we would get stuff like this maybe once a week. Somebody would show up with something, usually some cow bones or something like that, or some weird-shaped rocks. They'd ask, what kind of fossils are these? So we're not used to it actually turning into something all that often, but it does happen. And in this case, she had brought in the arm bones of a Tyrannosaurus. And Jack Horner, the paleontologist there, my old boss, instantly recognized it as something very, very special. And they sent out a crew the next summer, and it turned out to be the most complete T-Rex ever found. And now you'll find casts of this skeleton in museums around the world. So there are some casts that we saw at Museum of the Rockies early, about a month ago. 2 weeks ago? I forget. But on this big road trip, I went back to Museum of the Rockies and checked that out. You can see the original fossils that these casts are made from at the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. It's funny, because we used to have those original bones at Museum of the Rockies. And then Jack Horner had made kind of a deal with the Smithsonian. Like, oh yeah, I'll find you some T-Rexes, and then, you could put those on display. And he kind of got distracted and dug up a bunch of Triceratops instead. And so, Smithsonian's like, where's our T-Rex? So he's like, okay, you can have one of our other T-Rexes. The Wonkel Rex is now on permanent loan to the Smithsonian. And there was a big ceremony with, handing it over to the Smithsonian. Big truck that came over with a T-Rex painted on the side. And, they brought in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. These generals, got up and gave speeches and stuff. And it was a big deal.
This is Laura Dern, Jurassic Park. Digging up dinosaurs is hard, frustrating work.
I was part of that back in
It
2014 is when we sent it off
so
to
leave it to the
the
professionals.
Smithsonian. And now you can see it there in their new dinosaur hall that just opened in 2019. It's like pulling the head off of a Triceratops. It's a very dramatic display, but it's really well done. And it's actually based on the research of one of my old mentors, Denver Fowler. So check that out if you're ever in Washington, D.C. Check this out if you're ever in Berkeley, California. It's definitely worth a stop. Again, I worked here when I was in high school. Basically, like, you know, every weekday that I wasn't in school, that the museum was open, I would be over here during the summer, during spring break, during winter break, Thanksgiving break. Every opportunity I had, I'd take the trip and I'd come work here at the museum. And senior year, I actually ended up cutting a lot of school so I could come here to the museum because I just felt that was a lot more important. And you know what? I was right. So yeah, I don't know. This place has got a very, very special spot in my heart. And I'll finally be able to share it with you while I still have all this mobile data. So yeah. And there you go, Erica. Yes, exactly. So you ditched school to go do another school? I ditched school so I could go hang out with scientists and do science. Yeah. But anyway, let's see. Can anybody tell me if Lordy is live yet? Because we're going to raid her. And as soon as she goes live. She is live. All right. Cool. Well, let's see here. Beautiful. Okay. And we will go ahead and wrap up this stream. So everybody, please join this raid because as soon as this stream ends, I'm going to go run over and show up on Lordy's stream in person in her kitchen. And I will tell you about all the exciting stuff that is going to be happening on this channel now that I'm done with this big road trip and now that I'm going full-time here on Twitch. There's big changes coming. So if you want to hear about those, I will tell you when I get to Lordy's place. So let me go ahead and there, let's see. Working with Lordy. There we go. Thank you, Claire. I appreciate that. Yeah. Excellent. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this. This has been so much fun. I've been so happy to be able to share this with you. One of my favorite places in the world. And now you've gotten to see it too. Maybe in the future we'll do a stream from inside if I ever do like a fundraiser for UCMP or something. But yeah. Without further ado, hopefully I will see you guys in Lordy's channel. And hang tight. I'll be over there in hopefully less than half an hour, okay? All right. See you there.
The world's first armored tank, you might say. That trunk is completely covered with thin, bony plates.